How's it going, guys? So over the last decade of us doing automotive stuff, I've occasionally videoed or taken a lot of pictures of things, and now we've decided maybe we should post those videos, right? So the video you're about to watch is probably not going to be as good as our recent videos, but it's an old video, and it's one that we did trying to help you out. Who knows, anytime over the last 10 years. That's kind of the fun of this thing, right? So we're going back through, we're just looking and finding stuff, right? So let's get to it. Alright guys, so for today's oldie but goodie, I'm going to show you guys how to carpet wrap a shelf. Specifically that shelf in the video. And this was probably done 2 years ago before I'm posting this. But I want to show you how to carpet wrap wood. This is just a wood shelf, okay? Don't put too much thought into it. There were some changes that I made after doing this video, such as cutting this small flap out over here so I could hide some wire access that runs up inside of here. And that's just so I can move things, adjust things. You know, I can pull these wires down in there and tighten them up. And then I can just take this and tuck it down in there and get rid of it. And it's the right way for you to carpet, say, a shelf, or pretty much anything you're building out of wood, really. Well, we're going to cover wood. You can use metals as well, but we're going to cover wood. So first thing you want to do is you're going to want to cut everything to size. Now, when I say to size, I'm talking everything's done, cutted, mounted, holes drilled, and it's actually screwed down. So you'll have holes in your boards as well. Our end goal is like this shelf over here, which I didn't record because, well, I forgot. So we are in our custom toy hauler. As you can see, we just got the floors put down. We're building a whole shelf unit on this side. And now we're going to carpet these shelves because they were bare wood and they kind of looked bad. So, first thing you want to do, get everything bolted in. You want a very small gap around the edge. There's no real measurement for that gap, but it's what your carpet's going to take up once you mount it in there. If you don't leave this gap, it might not fit. So leave just a very small gap, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, if that, on each board, on each side that will be butted up against something. So back here, we're going to want a 1/16. We're going to want a 1/16, and between these two, we're going to want a 1/16. The front, not so much, because we're going to wrap it around the edge. Now, there's two primary markings you're going to want to put on this board. First off is the top. You want to know when it's mounted inside of the toy hauler, which way faces up, and then you're going to want to know where the front is. You're also going to want to mount it, or mark the front on the other side. And that's because once this is all wrapped, you're not going to be able to see that marking. Carpet. Make sure it fits before you put glue on this. I already have glue on this. You're using a contact adhesive. I don't know where it's at. Oh, contact cement. There's plenty of brands out there. You can spray them. You can brush them like what I'm doing now. But you're going to want a contact adhesive. Contact adhesive pretty much means that you put your adhesive on one component, put it on another, it gets a little tacky, you put them together and it sticks. This is important because when you put it on this component, it's going to soak into that wood, and that's what's going to create your main bond. Same thing with that, even though it's rubberized. This is automotive grade loop carpet with rubberized backing. It's waterproof. It's water resistant. Water will not get through that rubberized backing, but it will soak the other side where the loops are. Great product, and you should use it because when we put glue onto the carpeted side, you don't want it to soak all the way through. Another thing you might want is this lovely giant piece of paper. Now you want it longer than what you actually think, because what's going to happen is I'm going to put glue on this, and then I'm going to set that off to the side somewhere. And I'm going to pull that piece of carpet down. I'm going to want to put glue on that as well. But you see how there's some glue around the edges where it gets onto the paper? You don't want that on the face or the seam edge of your carpet. So what I'm going to be able to do then is take this piece of paper, flip it up, new clean surface, but I can still glue on it. Now, when you're gluing the wood, you're going to go all the way to the edge with the glue. When you're gluing the carpet, you don't have to go to the edge because you want the carpet to be at least a little bit longer than the actual thing you're wrapping itself. So, you don't have to worry as much about having the paper all the way to the edges. But it's good to have there just in case. When you do use your glue, set it on there or hold it over. That way when you're taking your handy dandy, ooh, look at that contact adhesive sticking. See it? That's how contact adhesive works. It's on the brush, it's on the lid, it's tacky, as you can see, and it starts to stick to itself. So, the reason you want to put it over top is because if you take it out and you drizzle it around, that's fine. Now you can go in and you can brush it in. Again, this is a rubberized backing, so the glue will not go through and show on the other side. If you use a different thinner material or a cheaper carpet, you run this risk of the glue actually showing on the other side and ruining your surface. Alright, the carpet's all glued up. You can see all the way around the edges. General idea of where that's going to go. And here's a little tip for you. See these lines going this way? There's a reason for that. It's called the direction of the material, or the pattern of the material. On the other side, everything is not even. You can see the loops always go left to right. So, if you're going to have your pattern going this way on one piece, you want it to go that way on all the pieces. So the one inside there we already have mounted. It goes long ways against the lines. Use the lines to line things up. Some materials, like leathers and things like that, have specific patterns on the other side, and you want them to be correct, otherwise they look very, very wrong. So that always make sure that the pattern of your material goes the right way. Now we're going to put our board up there. Alright, we're going to take note of the front. Remember, we leave that mark because we need to wrap this all the way over. So we want to make sure that we have room. With this piece of material, it's not as important because we're going to leave just as much room on the back. But we're going to cut that off. So you do want to make sure that you know where the front is because it's going to get stapled a little bit differently. And for good reason. Now, once you get this on here, and I'm not going to be able to do it with one hand, you're going to want to lift this up on end. You're going to want to push your material from the center out in all directions, from the center this way, from the center that way, from the center up. And what you're going to do is you're going to remove any air bubbles, wrinkles, and whatnot. Now this glue is a lot weaker than the industrial glue we actually use on automotive upholstery. I use this for two reasons. First off, it's so I can make adjustments like this. When we use our higher end glues, our instant tacks we have glues, when you push down, it is bonded and you're not getting it back off. When we use those glues, we have to be a little more careful. We have to do this in a different manner, where we set it on the other way and we push it as we install it across. I didn't want to do that. The other reason is because you can buy this glue in hardware stores. You can go into Lowe's, which I believe is where I bought this glue. It's made by Weldwood and it's not bad, but you can buy it. The other stuff I have to buy in gallons, and I have to buy it from a manufacturer, or for a shop directly from a industrial specific manufacturer. So I wanted to get something that you can get. Now this says dries in about 15 to 20 minutes. That's kind of important, and I say kind of for two reasons. First off, we are going to apply pressure to this to a point. How it sits right now is applying pressure to it. When we staple it on there too, it's going to hold. So we're not necessarily worried about waiting that full 20 minutes because it is going to hold. Now what's going to happen is as you put stuff on top of this, or as you install it, extra pressure is going to be added, and it's going to bond better and better over time. Again, high-end product that can be used on nearly anything. So when you buy a little container like this, which isn't much, under 10 bucks, save it. Use it for a lot of things. You're going to have to throw your brushes away. That's just part of it. But save your glue. You can use it on anything. Literally anything. So, what I'm going to do now, and I can't do because I need both hands, I'm going to lift that up and I'm going to press it out. And I'm going to set it back down, and then we're going to talk about stapling. Now, real quick, this is a pneumatic stapler, which means you need an air compressor. I love it, but I use it on everything. Again, I own an upholstery shop, and I staple a lot into plastics, woods, and so on. Pneumatics kind of important for me. You can use an electric stapler. I have used electric staplers for a long time, especially the yellow Stanley ones. Alright, I just lifted it up like I was talking about and smoothed out my main surface. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to staple the front edge. Now when we do this, you see these holes? These are those pre-drilled mounted holes we talked about in the beginning, because you want everything to be mounted if you're going to use the holes. I'm not actually sure if I'm going to put the bolts back into it to hold this down, because I'm going to put these in there and they're going to squeeze quite tight, and I don't mind them just sitting there. But if you're going to build like a shelf or something, pre-drill your holes so you know where they are. Now, we want this to wrap all the way around the edge, because if you remember from inside, this edge shows. I'm going to staple just on the outside of these holes. That's a personal preference, and that's because if you are going to use these holes again, you need to be able to see them from the bottom. Because what you're going to do is you're going to take something like a pick or some other small sharp object, and you would push it through this hole and mark the other side with, say, a piece of chalk. Or something similar that's going to show up on this carpet, but not necessarily stain it. If you're going to use something that's going to stain, like I say, a silver Sharpie, which I've used before, make a very small dot. But you're going to want to know where that hole is directly. So you need to be able to see those. So what we're going to do, we're going to fold this and make sure it folds all the way down so you don't mess it up. And you're going to fold it over, and you're going to pull right here. I'm going to take the stapler then, as I'm pulling that, and I'm going to put staples right here along the edge. Now you want them to be just far enough in to where you're not going to see them, but with loop carpet, the staple does sink in a little bit, and you're not going to see it anyways. I will show you. Now, I put 3 staples very close together just because I wanted to show an example. Now, see where the hole's at right here? I am staple right on the outside of that. Now, the thing with loop carpet, which is why we use it in the automotive industry, is say something does get into here, like a staple. It sinks. It is gone. You can't really see it from a distance. You can see it a little bit right now, but if you took your finger and you went in 4 directions, it almost disappears. That's why we use loop carpet in everything, because it's great. So we're going to continue going along this edge, and then we're going to cut it. So we're going to go all the way down to the corners. Here's a corner, and here's a corner, and we'll go from there. Well, I wanted to show you guys how to very simply wrap this corner. But the issue is this corner is notched, and that corner is notched. So we need to do it a little bit differently. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out a nice pair of scissors. Where are my scissors? Oh, hiding behind the glue thing. I'll take out a nice pair of scissors. You can cut, because we know you're not going to use this material, down to the edge. You see our staple right there? Okay, we're going to cut just outside of that. This is just for now. Now we can move this out of the way so we can work in here. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take these scissors and we're going to cut directly into the corner. But here's the trick. You see this depth right here? We don't want to go that far into the corner. So you have this depth and out to about, you can't see. So you see this depth right here? We want to leave that in this corner. So we're going to go to about right here. So we're going to come from pretty much anywhere out here, because none of this is going to get used. And we're going to come in, and then at a 45-degree angle to the corner, we're going to cut it in half. And we are going to leave, right there's our spot, up to the edge. Now, what we're going to do is first going to lift this up, and we're going to staple it over here. Then we're going to lift this up, and we're going to staple it over here. Now what this is going to do is from the top, you see how there's this extra right here where there should be something? When you press that into an area, like a corner, when you're pushing it down, it's actually going to sit down. And it's going to hide that corner completely. And that's the goal. Now, what I didn't talk about with that whole wrap a corner idea is when we get to these sides, you have an option. One, we can either wrap all the way around and staple from the top, which is fine. One thing to keep in mind, that's going to raise this up, whatever the thickness of your carpet is, compressed. That can be completely fine with you. If, say, because you have this whole front edge wrapped all the way around, you wanted the back to sit just a little bit deeper, that's okay. What you're going to do is you're going to wrap it, you're going to staple the ends, because they're not going to be seen on this project. You're going to see the ends, they have to be wrapped all the way around. And that's what we're going to do with this one. We're going to wrap it all the way around, and we're going to staple it on the top like we did the front. Yes, a 90-degree corner. I can show you how to wrap it. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the side you're already stapling, and you're going to want to look for that corner. You're going to want to pull it a little bit tight. You're going to want to come in a little bit with it. Not a lot, just a little bit. You're going to pull it in, and we're going to add a staple right on the edge. Alright. You can see where it's kind of pulling around. Right there's that corner. Now we're going to want to do the same thing on the other side. That's going to be a little bit harder, because you're going to want to kind of pull this out of the way. You're going to want to wrap this one up. Now, if it makes it easier for you, come off it a little bit and add a couple staples over here. Then we're going to come back to that same corner. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to want to pull it back, and then we're going to pull it up and over, and then staple it right on near the edge. Alright, it's time for the secret sauce. Ready? So you see how this edge right here, this corner, you can pull it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull it up, and we're going to push the stapler right in here. Now, let's see if I can do this with the camera. You're going to push it right into the corner, and you're going to push it back. You're going to push the material. It's going to pull it. It's going to pull it hard. You're going to put a staple right in that corner right there. Let's do it. Alright, it worked. It looks great right there on the corner. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take your handy dandy shears. We're going to cut first here, and we're going to cut here, then, well, actually, let's first add a few more staples over here, so that way we know that's correct before we go cutting that corner. Alright, you can see where we added them down through there. So let's cut this corner now. So, first thing you want to do is take your scissors. You're going to want to press them down in that gap. Right down in there. All the way. There, we're going to cut it. You're going to do it on the other side. Press it down in there. And you're going to cut it. Now, what this is going to do, you can cross here. If you have a bunch of material like this. Oh, come on. Come on, follow the line. There it is. Now, what this is going to do is you're going to get this little nip right here. See it? We're going to do one more cut. So first we cut here. Then we cut here. Now we're going to come right down the center. We're going to cut the top. Oh, come on. Cut the top off. You see how this is starting to set flat? One more staple right here. Boom. You have almost a flawless cover top. Now, let me trim this back so we can look at it. Well, I trimmed a very crooked line. That's embarrassing, but it's on the bottom, so we won't see it anyways. So, what we have is here, you can kind of see where those are puckering up. But, when you look at it from the end, when you look at it when it's mounted into something, it's a very, very well-wrapped corner. Now, you can do this with almost any material. I mean, this comes from vinyls, some leathers, things like that. Actually, let's look at this end while we're here too. You can see when you look from the bottom, that is a perfect 90. And we're going to do the same trimming method up here. We're going to trim here, and we're going to trim here. We're going to take that whole top off. Alright, so we got all of our corners wrapped up. And now we can actually inspect the final product. Now, remember, here's the front. This is the front. You can see where some of that glue is finally starting to tack up. Remember that 15 to 20 minutes. But you have enough room to press it all down. There you go. It's almost a perfect surface. Now the front edge, you can see when we mount that in there, it's nice and smooth across there. Now, I know all of these corners are going to get tucked away and unseen, but you can finally see them. You know, you're going to look at it from up here. Just inspect it. All of these are going to get tucked away behind there. Now, the big thing with loop carpeting, when you cut it, you're going to get these little fluff balls. Oh, it didn't focus. But anyways, there's these little fluff balls. Don't panic about them. They just come right off. What you don't want to do is if a loop looks like it's coming off, it's fluff ball. Oh, that was just a fluff ball. What you don't want to do is you don't want to go pulling on these loops. Loop carpeting, when they make it, it's just a loop after loop after loop sewn together. And you don't want to go pulling on a string because it'll rip it out. If you use a dull razor blade like I did to make this cut back here that looks so bad, it's because my razor blade's dull, you have a risk of grabbing these loops and pulling them, which could destroy your material. Use a sharp razor blade or a sharp set of knives or something like, or scissors or something like that, because otherwise you run risk of damage. And that's why my cuts back here look bad, and that's why my cuts, my scissors are dull and my razor blade's dull. I don't really feel like going and grabbing another blade because I know it's not going to get seen down there. And this is a personal project. So I actually forgot to cut something out, and I noticed it when I went to put it in there. See that little bar right there? So on my wood, there's a notch cut out of it. And I didn't cut it out with scissors. And you got to make sure you do that. Remember that's there. Sometimes it helps to mark it, like an arrow or something under here, because no one's going to see this. That way you know when you're wrapping it. But I obviously wrapped it in the carpet, covered it up, and I forgot to cut it. So I gotta go grab some shears and cut that out quick. Alright, so we could just take this and put it in there and snip away, right? Yeah, the material's gonna wrinkle, it's gonna move, and it's not gonna look good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come from the back first, come right down the center, line it straight up, and start to cut. Now again, you can see I got some dull scissors. So let me make that first cut. Right, I made the first two cuts. Now what you're going to do is you're going to come from the top so you can look down. And you can see that blade's in. You're going to come back just a little bit. Leave a little in there. It's going to be like those corners. Remember how they stretch a little bit? Alright, get that cut. Now, use better scissors than what I have in my hand. My good scissors are at my shop. And I'm at the house. So, use some better scissors. Let's get this installed. Alright. There they are. In and good to go. Now, you can see that little line right there in the middle? Do you remember when in the beginning of this video when I said you have to cut it so there's about a little 32nd or 16th around the edge so the carpet can wrap around and fit all nice and pretty like? Would you like to guess who forgot to do that? My cuts were very tight along the edges and it caused for some issues installing. Issues such as the contact in the middle. You could take that apart and redo that cut and hope that you don't get any debris into the carpet because it's sticky now and things like that. I'm okay with that little bit of a difference. One thing I'm going to be doing is this cute little safe. It's going to get bolted through that wood anyways, inside of there. Something that if somebody came in looking around, you might not notice. There's going to be pots and pans on this shelf anyways. It's kind of one of those hide it in the very obvious place kind of things. Because things like this can cooker and so on will get thrown in there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go on the inside of here and I'm going to put a small little ledge across there. Maybe. Actually not sure if I'm going to or not. Just so stuff doesn't slide out. Haven't really decided. I need something right there. It might be a net. It might be anything. I technically have doors that go over this that swing down. And when the previous owner put those on, I hated it. Because we want to put a countertop right here. And it will cover that edge of that door. That will be our countertop. So we still got to figure that out. This is how you wrap carpet. Works for carpeting. This works for vinyls. This works for leathers. This works for a lot of other materials. The basic concept of wrapping materials is all the same. Now, what you need to keep in mind is always your corners. Materials like vinyls, they stretch a little bit more. Carpets don't necessarily stretch. As you can see, remember those inner corners that had that little bulge in it? And I said, they'll look great when we get them installed. You can see that you don't see anything. So as long as you keep those same theories of leaving the same thickness inside that corner when you cut it, that way it can stretch like that, you won't have an issue. One thing that might happen is when you go to install that, you need to watch those corners to make sure they don't come up and instead they push down. But you can push those down with anything. A credit card, a body card, whatever you have, just to kind of start to tuck those down when you press it in there. Because you'll press those corners in, kind of like this, and lay it down. But you have the basic concept. Always keep your material in mind. If you're unsure about something, test it first. Get a little piece of wood, because you're already going to have some scraps from cutting this anyways, and wrap your material around it. Make sure you can do your corners the way you want to do them. There are other ways to do corners. The big thing is that you want your top to look nice, and you want your showing edge to look nice. There's always a focal edge. It's very unlikely that somebody's going to be sitting on the ground looking up at your project, right? Think about that. If you have something that's more higher on that's higher on the ceiling, like say something you're going to wrap this, you're going to focus on this edge. You can't really see the bottom, and you can't really see the top. If you're going to wrap this, you can see the top and the front edge, and not really the bottom. Always think about where people are going to be looking at your project from, because that's a big difference. A great example is this little I don't want to say planking. They're not planks that I did running up this edge. When you open this, sure, you see the cut edge there. I'll notice that, but for my use, it's going to stay closed. Just where you see. It's what you see. It's always the edge that you see. You know, there's some issues under here where a piece broke, and I had to put a little gap piece in there. No one's ever going to see that. You can't see it from up here. Don't worry about it. So that's your basics on wrapping carpet. If you have any questions, comment below. I told you, comment, ask questions. So my name is Dustin. I'm with Hard Cruise Racing, and this is how you wrap carpet. The easy way, the right way, the way we do in our shop, the way we do for automotive, for camper stuff, for in our house. That's how you wrap carpet. Have a good day.